Hello, I'm Hank Brigman, and we'll start with our second question, which is, what are the 5 activities we're all involved in? Every one of our organizations are doing these 5 activities, and how can they be better integrated? How can we break the barriers between them? And then what's that emerging technology that's the key and hot customer experience tool right now? So within each of these 5 activities, there are needs and there are challenges. The first activity, profile. Now here, the need is to collect as much first-party information from our customers as possible. We want to get to know them. We need to get to know them. This helps us on so many levels. The second activity, preferences. To best engage our customers, we need to meet them where they are, where they want to be met, through their channel of choice. Preferences, so important today. The third activity, analyzation. We need to analyze data. We need to understand the profile. We need to understand the preferences. We need to understand all the touches along the journey. We need to understand where the friction exists. And we need to be able to identify opportunities and measure results of our efforts. The fourth activity, mapping. This is just one of the primary tools, a brilliant tool of customer experience. In 2002, I co-invented touchpoint mapping, and that, along with a bunch of the other mapping methodologies of the time, have evolved to what we use today as journey or experience mapping. It's just a brilliant tool that helps us see, understand, and plan. And lastly, the activity is execute. All 4 of those previous activities lead to emails, lead to text, lead to website. This is where we execute our plans to help that customer along their journey. And the goal of these 5 activities really is to help generate conversions. And I'm not talking about the macro conversion to sales. I'm talking about the little bitty conversions that get customers to move along to the next step. It's the little conversions that keep the journey going, that make the path happy. And it's those little conversions that are so key and so important to customer experience and to our customers, to building trust, to building that perceptual asset. And those little conversions help continue the customer's journey to their ultimate happy path. And their happy path is what they're trying to accomplish. Do they want to make a payment? Do they need a service call? That's what they're trying to do. That's their happy path. Our job in customer experience is to help make that the happiest path it can be. So those 5 activities, those are the need states, but they each have their own problems. With preferences, we tend to have a little preference greed, don't we? Early on, we want to get as much information as we can. If we have something we want somebody to download, we've got fields and fields of information we want to collect. And yet, data shows the more fields we ask, the less submissions we get. In fact, asking for a phone number reduces submissions by at least 5%. Honoring preferences. Wow, this is just a growing aspect of business today. There are over 100 global privacy regulations as we speak. Gartner anticipates that over 65% of the planet will be under privacy regulations within the next 5 years. So there are challenges that we in organizations need to meet through obtaining preferences and related consents. And then analyze. A challenge with analyzation is that we have trouble getting a holistic omni-channel view. If you think of page views or clicks or likes or sales or payments or first call resolution, each of those are in different channels, and the data often reside in different databases. So bringing that together into a holistic view that really helps us understand our customer's omni-channel journey can be challenging. That then leads to mapping. The challenge in mapping is how we have historically done mapping is employees in a room trying to map the customer journey. And in my experience and all of our experiences, I think we've come to know that employees really don't know customers as well as we think we do or should. And so it's not uncommon that we kind of get a narrow view and that perhaps our view of the customer journey isn't even accurate. And execute. So the challenge with execution really resides in the challenges of the previous 4, because they all lead to execution. If we don't have the right profile, it's tough to execute personally. If we don't have the right preference, tough to meet the right channel. If we don't have the right analytics, again, it's tough to have the right plan And if we have employees mapping, it may be tough to get accurate information, accurate plans. So those are the challenges of those 5. The emerging technology combines the analytics activity and the mapping activity. And remember the challenges in those 2 activities. One, in analytics, it's tough to get the omni-channel view, and in mapping, we've got an insular internal view that may not be accurate. Now, this emerging technology is called by a variety of things these days. You have a journey analytics, you have journey management, you have journey orchestration. Now, Forrester and their Wave reports looking at these platforms, they call them journey orchestration platforms. In the Forrester Wave report, I affectionately call them JOPs, short for journey orchestration platforms. So what do these JOPs do? Well, first and foremost, they capture these omni-channel touches. Whether it's on your website, whether it's your call center, whether it's on social media, whether it's click-throughs, whatever the case is, it's capturing all those and doing so in near real time. Now, what does it do with that captured data? Is here we bring it in and we analyze it and we map it. The analytics now are available on the omni-channel touches of our customers, real touches. And lastly, it orchestrates. It uses artificial intelligence, machine learning to help us understand what some of the triggers that we can do to improve those little bitty conversions we talked about, those little conversions that keep the customer on their happy path, that makes it the happiest, the smoothest path, helps create trust, helps build that perceptual asset. So with the JOP, you have the right journey, you have a view to the omni-channel touches, you see the friction, and you can now develop a plan that's actually going to focus on the right journey, and you're able to reduce time. So we've combined kind of the analytics and mapping activities of those 5. Let's look at the other 3 quickly. What are the opportunities there? With profile, again, we talked a little bit about profile greed. The thing that is happening in profile now is what's called progressive profiling. So rather than trying to catch as much as you can up front, that greed, it's really collecting bits of information along the journey. You add. It's a progressive way of collecting data and information. A little bit here, a little bit there. You add, you add, you add. You know what you've collected before. You don't ask again. On preference, and we really need to add consents and privacy here. There's huge risk. There are typically in most countries, there are fines. There can be lawsuits. You really need to start to look at perhaps some of the technological tools that are available on preferences. It's so complicated. And regulations are changing every day. So these tools stay abreast of those. They're country and regulation specific. Consider taking a look at those, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. And then execution. JOPs don't deliver communications. They trigger communications with the communication tools that companies use. So whatever you're currently using for execution, if you have marketing automation, et cetera, those will probably work well with the journey orchestration platforms. So the JOPs trigger the right communication at the right time to the right person with the right message to help them on their journey, to help with that little conversion they may need right then and there. Now, as an organization, as we look at these 5 activities, a couple of keys here and a couple of warnings. The key is to look at them holistically. And really, some of these new technologies, the JOPs and maybe the preferences, can replace some legacy tools and legacy expenses. The 2 warnings, there are a lot of tools out there that claim to be JOPs, that claim to do all of what these journey orchestration platforms can do. Just beware. A lot of the marketing automation tools claim a little bit more than they're capable of. So just understand that you've got some wolves in sheep's clothing out there. Do your due diligence. It's a jungle out there with the journey orchestration platforms, but look on an enterprise level and make sure that it encompasses all the capabilities that the true journey orchestration platforms do. And lastly, be sure that the tools you look at, they work together, or the tools you're looking at bringing in will work the other 3 aspects or 4 aspects of these 5 activities. IT integrations will be important, of course. Now, integrating these 5 does 2 really key things, integrating these 2 technologies into these 5 activities. One, it improves compliance, it reduces risk, but it accelerates. It builds on this historic lesson of really helping you and your organization break down some of the barriers between these various activities, to smooth it out, to make it quicker, and to quantify. Progressive profiling increases that first-person data, and it helps each of the subsequent activities. And then, of course, preferences and consents. Knowing the channels that your member want, you can meet them there. Also, as you collect preferences and consents, it helps engagement with your customer. You can often communicate with more customers. And also, if you're collecting email or text opt-ins, chances are you can reduce the cost of your communications if some of your communications go by mail otherwise. And then the journey orchestration. This is the true accelerant. It improves accuracy. It reduces your go-to-market time. Remember, 14 weeks it took Sharon and Joy in the original use case, and 3 weeks with a job. Now let's just think about that for a second. If each kind of customer experience question through to the conclusion of execution of the test runs 14 weeks, over the course of a year, if you did them sequentially, you can do about four of those. If it takes 3 weeks, you can do about 17. Therein lies an aspect of the accelerant. The ability to squeeze down the time of the analytics and the mapping and some of the other aspects of those 5 activities. The job does an extraordinary job of expediting and accelerating the time to market with your ideas, your plans, and your tests. Jobs can actually run an A/B test, and you can set a threshold that you say if either of the options gets to a consistent 70% versus 30%, the test stops and the 70% goes ahead at 100%. So those are the 5 activities. But what can be our first step? What should we do, right? Well, consider an audit. Let's look at those 5 activities. How are they currently integrated? What's the current technology we're using? How are they working? What's the current state? We've talked a little bit about the future state today, but let's look at current state, future state. What's the gap? And what's the plan to close the gap? So let me leave you with a couple of thoughts today. Lots of lessons over the last 20 years of customer experience management. We certainly know that we now need to better integrate these 5 critical activities. We need to look at technology for preferences and for jobs. We need to think about auditing the current state of these 5 activities, the technology, how well they're integrated, and how big the gap is between where we are in our current state and that future state. Now, I've talked a lot about technology today. I want you to know I'm not associated with any of the technology companies. I have a customer experience consultancy, but I've done my research. I've done RFIs and RFPs. I've had lots of demos. I've met the teams of these companies. I've been in meetings. I understand their capabilities. I stay on top of it. And this is what I'm trying to share today, is what I've learned, because as I mentioned about jobs, it's a jungle out there. So I'm here to hopefully help you understand these 5 activities, understand how to break down the barriers, understand where technology, new technology, emerging technology may fit in, and understand that jobs are the big thing in customer experience right now. We see the need. We see the need for how we can improve compliance and accelerate our efforts. This would help us understand then how we go from Post-its to a mouse in the greatest tool of customer experience, which is mapping. So take those Post-it notes, throw them away, get a job, and work with your mouse. I'm Hank Brigman, and I thank you for the honor of your engagement and your attention. I encourage you to reach out to me. Perhaps it's on your do list. I hope so. I love this stuff and would embrace any questions you have. Please don't hesitate. I'm Hank Brigman with Customer Experience Strategies, Inc. Thank you.